I've clicked go live.
Have you? I don't see it yet. Let's see.
It says I'm live. It says we're live. Good evening, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me.
I do see it. Hello, everybody. Happy Halloween.
Whoa.
I say everybody. I can't see how many people we have right now, but I should go over to the Discord and say we're live.
Awesome. Yes. So, yeah, this evening, Jan and I thought that talking about control systems would be a really good thing to chat about, because we've both had very recent experiences with control systems not working, perhaps the way that the designers had intended.
So I picked up Gotham Knights, which I'm actually really enjoying, much more so than I thought it would. Much more so than any of the Arkham games. I mean, I like the Arkham games, fine. But this one's really compelling. It's the first open world game where we're actually seriously considering hunting down some of these collectibles. There's a couple of things that I'm having issues with. One is the stability. I mean, it's got some bugs anyway, and I'm running it through Proton, so I can play it on Linux. So I'm kind of asking for trouble.
You should try Windows.
I've got a window. I've just closed it. But the other one is somehow the controls feel sluggish. And they're not sluggish, but they feel it. And I kind of want to figure out why, because that's a really interesting problem to have in a game, where your controls are actually really tightly done, but your character seems to die a lot because they're not doing what you want them to do. What have you been playing, Mikey?
Well, I will go back to, I can't remember. I want to say Forest. It's not Forest. Because there's a game called Into the Forest that I keep thinking that it's the same thing. So I'm going to bring up...
Oh, no, those are different things.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, hello, Roderick. Hello, Mindstammer. Hello, Todd. And hello, Gerard. And hello, Mikey.
Hello. So great. I think everybody can hear us, which is good.
I hope so.
The Long Dark.
Please raise your hand in the reel.
In the real? Is that like the real world?
Yeah, not in chat.
You've got like the upside down and you've got the real.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was The Long Dark. I must have mentioned it, I think, a couple of months ago.
That's a very different game. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I think they're the same. Perhaps there's an axe in both of them or something simple like that. But it's been blatantly set up. Well, okay, I'm projecting here. But I think it's been set up by it's been designed for a console controller. And whoever's designed the control scheme has never played anything that's a first person. So whilst WAS and D go backwards and do that bit, all of the rest of the controls are different. Yep. And it took me quite a while. I was dying lots because of it.
And I want to say hello to... Okay, now, my Portuguese is pretty close to non-existent. So I don't know. I believe it's Jorge. It might be Georgie. Jorge. I apologize. I do English and French and a little Japanese. I don't really do Portuguese. But hello to all of you with that name.
And I don't do other languages, and so if I need to, I refer to Jan. Even if he can't help, I still refer to that.
Yes, it's his fault. So yeah,
well,
I was playing. Go on.
I was going to say we've all been there when we've been playing a game, and some of it's because you're still learning the game, especially if it's a quick action game where you've got to block just at the right time. And it's not like the enemy's going, oh, and then you can block just at the right time. Some games are really fast and frantic. One game that was very interesting that I played recently, something Hellblade. Suina Hellblade, something along those lines. I didn't realize it was based in like Vikings. And so it was really interesting with the playthrough, all the scenery and everything, and the story that went along with it. But that was very interesting because the actual, it was like two different genres melded together. You had the puzzle side, you had to figure out how to align objects or do something like that in the world, and then you had like the combat side, and they were distinctly two different systems. But when you were playing the combat side, the quick time events that you had, no, sorry, they weren't quick time events. That's when you get A, B, X, Y on the screen or whatever. But
I have words to say about quick time events, but yes.
But yeah, if you block, you would block everything. If you block at the right time, you can parry, which is a common thing in those type of games, and then they're sort of staggered, so you can hit them. But it was very interesting that the all the controls were very fluid and responsive. And I think you were saying with Arkham Knight, when you dodge, not Arkham Knight, Arkham people.
Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you press dodge, it's instant. No matter what you're doing, you can be halfway to completing a slow, heavy move or whatever. Your character will just get out of the way. So it is very responsive. I think part of it is when your character turns, they actually animate the turn. So if you're facing that way, you have to wait for the skeleton to finish the animation. And if you want to interact with anything, both the character and the camera have to be facing the right place and close enough.
I mean,
so what that means is Batman's left some caches around for you to find. You go up to one. You go to press A to open it. You're slightly off center. You're facing the wrong way. That's fine. I can turn. You turn and you turn around the thing and press it again, and you're facing the wrong way. And it's like, how are you an elite vigilante with amazing physical prowess when you can't turn?
no.
And there's been a few times where I've died because my character decides he's not going to do what he wants, what he's supposed to do. He's going to run to the corner
And hide. You can't see me.
Yeah, or you're surrounded by people who are aiming guns at you. Instead of throwing a projectile at any one of them, he's going to throw the projectile at the explosive barrel next to him.
That'll show him.
But it's interesting because I think it's that turn and the fact that you have to be very precise. I don't enjoy using controllers in third-person games. They're fun for driving. When it comes to actual things like combat or shooting, I know many people prefer it. I'm not one of them. When we play GTA, I would have the controller for the driving and the flying and the boats. We'll talk about GTA in a minute because that's a great example. But for anything to do with moving around on foot or shooting, it's back to keyboard and mouse.
I remember that when we would play, okay, so we take off in a helicopter, and I get in the helicopter, and I'm piloting, and I go, right, I'm going to grab my controller here, Jan, and I'm grabbing my controller, and I'm doing this, and it's not on. The time between me last using the controller, it had gone off, and I picked it up, and I was like, and Jan's like, Mikey, pull up, and I went, I am, it's not, it's connected.
So GTA is a really interesting example. Also, hello, Vertex. GTA is a really interesting example. Mikey and I played some GTA 5 together. I went through a phase of playing a lot of it. On the online thing, which I had to sort of cheat myself out of public lobbies because I just don't want to deal with the toxicity. And the game kind of encourages toxic behavior in a lot of its design decisions. Especially when you get to higher levels and you get access to things like flying cars with missile launchers, where you're getting rewards.
The opportunity for trolling,
right. You're rewarded for trolling in a bunch of different ways. But that aside, I spoke to Mikey about actually this is a lot of fun. We should do some missions together. So Mikey downloads it, and he hasn't played it in a while, and we start playing together. And it's great, except GTA 6 has been around for so long, and so many people have worked on it.
GTA 5.
GTA 5. GTA 6, I've gone back in time. I had my DeLorean. It was very awkward with my mother in a car. No, GTA 5 has been around for so long, and they've added so many mechanics and so many types of vehicles that the controls aren't consistent. So we were doing a mission. We're trying to do the whole mission stealth in under 10 minutes. It was this lovely little island invasion snatch and grab thing, which you can do loud, but that's very hard. But stealthy is really, really fun.
Yeah. And
we go right to the end. And we've picked an exit where there's a speedboat waiting for us at their boathouse, which is covered in guards, and we've snuck our way around, and we haven't been caught, and we've used silencers and popped guards in the back of the head when no one's looking, and hidden them in the bushes, and done all kinds of stuff. And then they spot us. We've got to go now because we are just not armed. to survive an actual full frontal assault. So we jump into the water and we start swimming for the boat, and we swim for the boat, we swim for the boat, we swim for the boat. We're underwater, they can't shoot us properly. And we surface from the water and we press the button to get in the boat. But the button to get in the boat is the same as the button for dive underwater. So we both just dive under the boat.
It would have been better having the music being yakety sax at that point.
And this happens like 3 or 4 times where one of us is in the boat and the other one's trying to get in.
I think at one point I pressed the button and I got out the boat again. I was like, no.
It was so...
No.
Like, that was a moment where the controls being so... What's the word I'm looking for? Unintuitive. Just wrecked the game. I mean, it was hysterically funny in hindsight, but at the time, that was really frustrating.
I think I recall playing GTA, like when I first got back into it after a while, I would inadvertently press the get out the car key.
Yeah.
You'll be driving along as like, I've done it in a helicopter. I mean, Jan did not appreciate me vacating at 2,000 feet.
Actually, no, that wasn't the worst one. The worst one was when the lobby disconnected one of us who was piloting a helicopter. The other one was stuck in the passenger seat as this thing was hurtling towards the ground. That was no fun at all.
It was lots of fun.
I don't know. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about with controls, and there's 2 kind of... I'm trying to form these phrases because I have an idea of what I want to talk about, but it's not like I've written a book on it.
Can I zoom out for a moment and talk about game design?
You have the camera controls. Go for it.
So when it comes to game design, actually thinking about your control system first is really important, because I've played first-person shooters on my mobile, and it is a horrible experience. And personally, I cannot play. I'm a Twitch player, not as in on Twitch, but I'm very twitchy when I play. And using a controller, I just can't handle it if I'm playing a first-person shooter. And the same when in third person, if I've got the ability to aim using the mouse, I will choose it every single time. I just cannot handle it. But designing a game with your control system in mind is so important, because if your character requires 30 different buttons to push, it's a flight simulator or Elite Dangerous, something along those lines. Suddenly, you have got to dumb it down if you want it to be available on a controller. And if you want it on mobile,
video for a few years back from Game Maker's Toolkit about, do controllers limit the kinds of games you can make?
Interesting.
And Mark talks quite interestingly about the sort of the history of the handheld controller and what it's really good for, and the fact that most shooters and racing games have kind of standardized the controls, which they don't really need to. But I remember when we were working on Mag Racer, and you were like, "Yeah, accelerate needs to be right trigger." And I don't use the controller enough for that to have... I mean, I'm happy with it being A or whatever.
But yeah.
But there's kind of a standard thing. But there's some things they're really bad at. So it's important to sort of look at the hardware, which is one of the 2 things I was going to look at. Whether it's... Is this a console game? Is this a PC game? And by PC, I'm including Windows, Mac, and Linux. I mean personal computer as opposed to console, right? There's also, how do you want the player to feel? Because there are times where a really frantic, unintuitive experience is the game.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Space Team on mobile. Did I ever play Space Team with you? It's a free game. You should check it out.
I think so, yes.
Okay, so you can play 2 to, I think, 8 people, and you're all going to fly a ship together as a space team. And what happens is, as you go through the levels, you have a randomly generated console, which will start falling apart. So you have to kind of swing things back together. So you're all holding out your phones. And then each of you will get instructions. And it'll be things like, polarize the flim flam. It's literally what it will say. The problem is that may or may not be on your screen. And if it isn't, then the other person who has it. So it's a bunch of people trying to shout at each other and then realizing, oh, wait, that's on me.
Yeah.
That kind of chaos, and the fact that controls are different every time and make no sense, that makes sense, right? That's a game designed around bad controls, and that can work fine.
I remember one of the first times that I ever played on a friend's PS1. I mean, we are going back many, many years now. But there was a quick time event where you had to press triangle and then square. And the last controller that I had used was like a NES controller. After that, I was on PC and then I was around the friends. But it was going so quick that by the time I looked down to work out which one was triangle or circle or whatever, I was like, I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. And so you can actually alienate people from your game just because they're not familiar with the controller. I mean, I bet there are plenty of people out there. So I presume the PS5 or PS4 controller's the same. That these two joysticks, you can push them down. There's a button underneath there, and so just having
Although, it's actually often really hard to push it down without moving the analog stick. The same problem I have with the middle mouse button. It's a really awkward control.
I had a really old Xbox controller that I was using initially with a PC. I was playing a game where pushing one of those buttons down was a quick action to turn 180. But because it was an old loose controller, when I'd be frantically running around and just 180, 180. Okay.
So Jorge mentions that first controller they used was a Kempson joystick playing Barbarian in the Amiga 500. I remember Barbarian on the Atari ST, and I remember every single game, almost every single game, was joystick.
I had one of those joysticks. Yes, I mean it's almost like I wouldn't say a throw over, but it came from the arcade scene. Where you'd
but even like there are arcades that had different control systems, twin stick shooters,
yeah.
Marble Madness with that trackpad thing. There were shooting games, there were driving games, they had steering wheels. But for some reason, there was a period in which every game was controlled by the joystick, whether or not that made sense. There was a whole bunch of sports games, things like triathlon and all the rest of it.
Going back
where in
there.
order to win, you had to waggle the joystick as fast as you could. What does that mean? It means hammering left to right to left to right as fast as you could, while your friend next to you was doing the same thing.
Let me guess, it's sponsored by the joystick industry.
He went through so many joysticks with that. It's also interesting that you want to be very careful of intuitive standardized controls that everyone has. A great example of this is this thing, right? Try to play Arkham Knight, Gotham Knights rather, and enjoying it. And I've been playing it solely with the controller, which sometimes is really annoying, sometimes it's great. But they'll say things like, okay, to do this, you've got a split second to decide what you're going to do in this moment. If you want to do a silent takedown, press Y. And if you want to do a ambush that's really loud but will cause fear amongst them, press X. I'm like, is that the yellow or the blue? WSAD is another great one. I mean, leaving aside that there are people in the world who have AZERTY keyboards, so you actually mean ZASD, unless you're American, which is aluminium ASD, because they don't say Z, they say aluminium. I remember when all games used the cursor keys and control.
Doom was like that. The original Doom.
Auto 1, the original Doom was like that. Was cursor keys and control. No one used WSAD. Not until I'd say Doom. Actually, Doom was right on the edge. Doom was when people started using a mouse for shooters.
If I remember.
Yes, but Doom was the first game that had a mouse, and people were like, "Okay, you need to use your left hand for movement. You can't put on the cursor key if you're right-handed." So
I remember being like that at the computer because the cursor keys and the mouse are quite close to one another.
Daley Thompson's Decathlon. Well done. That's exactly the one I was thinking of. On the ZX Spectrum. Oh my God, that was... There was something about two 14-year-old, two 10-year-old boys sitting next to each other, waggling their joysticks as hard as they can. That makes your parents just stand at the doorway and laugh. I mean, just the sentence.
That's a clip.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird. There were strategy games that required it. Flight simulators, obviously, which you would actually have to print out or that give you an overlay for your keyboard to tell you what all the keys did, but you also had the joystick. I remember when I played Elite Dangerous for a while, I actually ended up getting a Logitech X95 Pro, which is a
HOTAS, is that where you've got
it's a HOTAS.
one
Yeah.
throttle, but the throttle's also got like
Hand on
27
throttle
buttons.
and stick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something like 24 buttons in total. In different combinations.
That's a lot.
So you don't have to use the keyboard at all, except in extreme circumstances. But yeah, it's okay. So there's a few things going on here. The first is sometimes everyone just falls into the pattern of this is how a game has to work. You have to use these controls. WCD is a great example, right?
Yeah.
WCD and mouse. Yes, most games use that, but they don't have to. There may be a reason not to for your game. Especially now when you've got access to things like, I mean, depending on what hardware you're using, touch screens, plastic guitars, the styluses. There's all kinds of different control systems available. There's also, I've lost the thread of what I was saying. Oh yeah, there's also
that's usually my job.
Assuming that the player knows what this does,
yes.
that they know the right trigger is drive, right? That right analog stick is look, that WSAD is move. If you haven't played video games in 20 years, or are just new to them in general, or just don't use this control system much, that's actually quite confusing.
I believe I've said this on the stream before, but I really wanted to play through The Last of Us, and I thought, I'll play it through with my wife as well, and she'll do all the movement stuff, and when it gets to the more difficult stuff, pass it over, do that. And there's a bit just at the very beginning where you come to a queue, you get out. I think you crash actually. You end up getting out your car, and you've got to basically follow these invisible clues that if you're used to gaming, you're going to know what they are. Oh look, there's a light there. There's a wall of fire there that's directing you that way. And we got to this little bit where you have to walk into a bar, and it's a quick timing event in the sake of you've got like 5 seconds to do it. If you take 6, you're dead. And after like 6 attempts, Kareen was just like, nope. And it was all due to the fact that, and this is right at the beginning of the game on easy, but that you die if you don't do it in that time. You die. There's no health or anything along those lines. It's just over. And I can understand how that can be incredibly frustrating, and obviously that's a bad memory to have of a game.
I mean, this kind of leads on to how to guide players through levels that feel open, which is a kind of different talk.
Yeah,
but it does remind me of on Sunday, Mikey and I played the last of the official campaigns for Left 4 Dead 2. We've been going through them every week, just playing different.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It's been fun. But there was a great moment where Mikey's character was just like, I don't know which way to go. And both of us just like, follow the lights, mate. It's what we've done every other time. Just follow the lights, go the only way you can, go through that big open door on the hill.
Duh, it's the only path you can't jump over.
Oh, okay. Speaking of non-intuitive design decisions, things that feel obvious at the time, but can actually have profound implications. I played a decent chunk of Gotham Knights, and I'd gotten my character customized. I was really enjoying it. I was getting access to some really fun things, and the plot was finally kicking in the way that it was really. However, and this is partly because of Proton, and partly because the game is that stable.
I've just remembered what it is.
The game doesn't always launch, right? So sometimes it takes me 3, 4, sometimes 5 attempts to launch the game. And what tends to happen is you press play, you wait a bit, black screen, epilepsy warning, press OK, continue. It's crashed the desktop. So I'm just.
You're going through the motions. I want to play my game.
And at the time that it actually came through, I accidentally pressed new game. And here's a fun fact with this game. Once you've pressed new game, there is no back.
It doesn't ask you, are you
sure? The moment
sure?
you've pressed it, it wipes your save game and all customization and progress, all achievements, everything, just gone. And it says, what's your difficulty level? I'm like, go back. No, your difficulty level. No, go back. No, difficulty level. Go back. Difficulty level. I missed my Nightwing. You're not Nightwing yet. What's your difficulty level? So I've had to start again. So do me a favor. If you're going to have a system like that, have a back button and some sort of warning. Hey, did you mean to wipe out your save?
It's
you're allowed, but do the thing you want to do.
it's interesting. Blender actually has a similar system. If you're actually exporting an FBX, GLTF, whatever it is, it won't say, "Oh, that file already exists." And if you're exporting lots of things and you're changing the name and you forget to change it, you end up overwriting. You're like, oh no! But yeah, it is bad user experience to not have an "Are you sure" button.
Oh, it was heartbreaking. Just like, but I just pressed it quickly because no.
Vertex Rage was saying
there's
Elite
moments like
Dangerous
that.
is really good with the Xbox controller, and that's a really good thing because it's also very good in VR. And trying to use your keyboard at the same time as being in a VR headset is quite difficult. However, having both your hands on a controller makes it so much more accessible.
I mean, that's one of the nice things about a HOTAS setup is you just memorize which button does what, and you don't have to see your hands. I wasn't using VR. I've never used VR on a PC. I haven't used VR since the 90s because I have cats, and wearing something over my face and then waving my hands around blindly. I mean, you've seen Caboodle jump on me twice. That's going to end badly.
Although it would make a good video for you being framed.
Is it still going?
I don't know.
Yeah. There are some games though where that sudden burst of confused activity is really interesting. Do you remember Helldivers? We played that briefly.
It was I found it quite difficult to jump in and just play. I don't know what it was about, and it was definitely a control
so
scheme.
what reminded me of that is I had to wipe my account in order to play with Mikey because the power difference was just too big. Like I had access to airstrikes and mechs and all kinds of things, and Mike's just starting out. So the first mission was just me walking around Mike, stopping him from getting an experience. Like, no, that's mine. That's mine. That's mine. You take pictures.
Being carried. But when there is a big level difference like that,
it
is challenging.
Yeah. So, and that's something that I mean, I haven't played it, but Gotham Knights seems to do very well. Is they lower or raise the guest to the host's level, which is smart. But Helldivers has this really interesting thing where when you want to use your ability, whatever abilities you've got slotted, there's actually a key combination you have to press. And it might be up, right, down, right. And if you at any time do that combination, that and the ability is up, it'll just do it. Which means in the heat of things where you're trying to resur or resummon your downed friend and you can't remember what the thing is, and you look at the screen going, it's up, down. Oh, VR games and cats is actually a big problem. Just looking at Vertex here.
Yeah, I mean, is it a design consideration? I mean, I suppose if you wanted to play VR, you'd have to make sure your cats were safe. So out the room, and then they just sit there removing your door bit by bit.
Well, I can't remember which VR system it is, but the one that has the sensors on the wall so you can walk around.
Yeah, HTC Vive and the Valve Index.
Me to walk around without seeing what's under my feet, and I have cats in the house. They're going to claw the crap out of me when I step on them.
I mean, the Oculus is no better. That's got cameras on the actual headset itself to judge movement. But you still,
if I don't have to move around, it's a little less dangerous. But even so,
oh, you imagine just playing with the mouse and keyboard, or just the mouse or whatever, and then a cat jumps at you, and you didn't realize they were there. That would be bad.
Yeah, VR looks a lot of fun, but I don't know that it's worth the risk.
Yeah, the kids love it. I mean, I've used it like a total of 3 times, and I still haven't. I bought a Half-Life Alyx last Christmas with the intention of playing it.
Have you still not played that?
No, I've got all the updates now, though.
So, weirdest controls. And I don't know if I'm proud or ashamed about this, got to the top 5 percentile of expert guitar on Rock Band 3 with a big plastic guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I can't play the guitar.
No,
And
that's
when I
quite
gave
common.
the plastic guitar to play because we used to have rock band parties when I was living in New York. And one of my friends was a professional bassist, and I gave him one of the plastic guitars. I said, "Here you go, you play bass." He's just like, "This is nothing like a guitar. This doesn't work the same way." But that was a really fun mechanism. That was just the controls involved were great. DDR dance pads.
Oh, I love them.
Are much less fun now that my feet don't work.
But that was interesting because I am a heavy chap, so bouncing up and down the cheap 20, 30 pound ones at the time, I'd break them instantly. And so I ended up looking around. I imported one from which European country uses not Corona, something else.
It's a beer.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember. I think it was Norway.
No European country that I'm aware of uses beer as currency.
Oh, this was before. This was before the euro as well. But anyway, I had to import it from abroad, and it was one level below going and getting a metal one from like an arcade or something, which would have been a bit overkill. But I absolutely loved DDR. It was amazing at the time.
I mean, it's a great control system for certain things. I do like that you can actually play Crypt of the Necrodancer with a dance pad.
Can you? Oh, I'm gonna buy one.
I'm not. If I go for a walk, I can't use my feet for 2 hours.
Think of what jumping up and down on a hard surface might do.
Mikey,
send help.
I can't. I'm laughing too hard.
Yes, okay, but record it.
Worst control system you've ever had to use?
For me, it would be a toss-up between the PS1 QuickTime stuff because I didn't know what that was. But in terms of, and I think it does boil down to that because for me, if you're used to a certain way of doing something and you've got to do something new, that's really where the difficulty, where the bad stuff comes in. But yeah, in recent memory, it is that game that I've forgotten again. What did I say? The Long Dark. And it was weird. I was like, oh, this is going to be a breeze. I played lots of survival games. And the first thing, I think after your plane crash, you have to gather some wood and make a fire in the cave. And the interact or pick up button, it does it. You click on it. And so I was mashing the keyboard and everything, and I died 3 or 4 times. I'm like, why am I unable to do this? What's wrong with me?
That is something that annoyed the poop out of me with Minecraft. I used to play a lot of Minecraft back when it was still in beta. Why is inventory on E?
Because it's close to I.
No. E is interact. We all know E is interact.
Not anymore, it's F.
I or tab.
So
F is respects.
I can't remember which one it was, as in which first-person shooter it was, where I first discovered that F is the interact key, because Q and E were for leaning, and I used to walk up to doors and go, huh?
Have you seen Dara Breen talking about he loves video games, but he's so bad at them?
Yes, inventory.
E for inventory, yes.
Well, ultimately, I get the idea behind wanting to bind.
7 Days to Die is an interesting one. The controls for 7 Days to Die are not intuitive. I enjoyed 7 Days to Die a lot.
I found it very difficult to build stuff the first time I was playing it. I was like, I don't quite understand it.
Right click to place and left click to rotate throws me every time. Tab for inventory, kind of. It's actually the crafting screen. Y for I is social menu. Y is journal. I don't know which button is for quests.
Q, of course. Why not?
No.
But it's interesting, right? Because if you've got these standardizations, if you deviate from that paradigm, for whatever reason, whatever your reason is, the moment you deviate from that paradigm, you are going to confuse your gamers, your players, ultimately. Now, I can just about get the hang of like changing from E to F. It's a bit of muscle memory difference, you know. You instead of going for one, you're just going to the other side. But for instance, I hate C for crouch.
Yeah.
For instance, because I'm so used to it being the control key.
Sorry, Vertex. I couldn't help myself.
It's fine. You carry on down in the chat. But yeah, that's probably. And I'm not against change, though. I think if the change is worth doing, I mean, for instance, first-person shooters have gotten more complex. It's not just about running around. You can now lean, so you've got. And I remember Thief had lean options as well. So
lean is great when it serves some purpose. And Thief, a slow, thoughtful game where seeing round corners was vital.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. In a cover shooter, it's a third-person game. I don't care. I mean, I don't really want to do like the Adam Jensen shuffle every time we go to a doorway.
Yeah,
Control is an interesting one. Actually, I remember, I can't remember which game it was. Oh, it might have been the RPG prototype, where Mike started saying, I don't like that this button is on control because I can't reach that comfortably on my keyboard. So one of the things you need to look at for controls, whether it's control physical systems or control design, as in how you design the controls in your game, is accessibility. You need to have some alternatives in there.
And frequency as well. So if it's something that your player is going to use again and again and again, so a craft menu under, let's say you were using WASD, a craft menu under C, E, Q, if it's right next to the player's hands, it kind of makes sense. Even tab, but putting it
None
under,
of those work.
I'm just using it as an example, but yeah. But you've got to be thoughtful. If someone's got to disconnect and press I, but if they're crafting in game and it's real time, and it doesn't pause the game when you're in the inventory, and we've had this question about the RPG as well. If you're not pausing the game when you're trying to organize things or find a potion, is that a good thing? Is that going to add pressure to doing it, or is it just going to be a frustration? Is it adding to the game having that mechanic?
Yep.
Otherwise, pause it, let them find the potion that they want and continue.
What is the experience you're trying to create, and does this support that experience?
Because players will also cheese it. So, for instance, I believe in Skyrim and Oblivion and maybe Morrowind, if you entered your inventory, the game paused. And of course, if the game's paused, you can go and consume a health potion. Dink. I'm almost dead. I'll just pause the game briefly. I'll go to my rucksack. Hold on, demon. Yeah, health. Cool. Off we go. And that's a problem.
Skyrim, nothing beats the bucket on the head exploit.
You can't see what I'm doing.
Hello, shopkeeper. Just wear this for me. I'm now going to rob you blind, but you can't see me. And now, here, buy all these things from me.
I think it was Oblivion. We're going a little bit off on a tangent, but I think it was Oblivion where if you stole something with no one else around and then went to a merchant to try and sell it, they'd be like, I can't handle stolen goods. How do you know I've stolen it? You weren't there when I stole.
Okay, so you're fine with me going into an orc compound, murdering them all and taking that stuff. But, all those poor skeletons.
But yeah, it's...
So here's a weird control for you. Bananas.
What's about bananas?
Bananas as controls.
Are we sticking electrodes in the control in the bananas?
Effectively, I saw footage of someone using a system called Mackie, which is basically, from what I can tell, a specialized Arduino board with crocodile leads, and you can put them on any conductive surface and program an output based on that. So they made a banana piano. So
I think I've seen
went to the computer. There was an interface that told it what the keys were, and you could play with it. So theoretically, you could make any kind of controller you wanted.
I like that.
Yes.
Throw them at the monster. Yeah. Ugh, me unhappy. Boom.
This boss fight is not. Okay. I hate boss fights.
Okay, the last boss fight I played that didn't make sense was in Deus Ex, where
Yes,
you're like this superhuman person, and now you're in this boss fight where you've just got to keep shooting the person.
the invisible person. And this won't count towards your pacifism run because you have to kill them. Yeah, the boss fights in Deus Ex were bad. I'm normally a little bit more diplomatic than that, but no, those were bad.
It was an interesting choice to put them in, because you can have a boss fight by making it a challenging finale to the level, either with more enemies or...
I just don't like large, I will stomp you in a couple of hits. You have to just defeat me in a very specific way challenges.
It kind of harks back to the very old games.
And here's a completely different mechanic you now have no real chance to do, so keep coming back to this.
I remember quite vividly some like R-type games, when you got to the level's boss, you would have to wait until a bay opened and revealed a weakness or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose it's a little bit of a puzzle game.
And in R-type, they covered the entire screen and covered the rest of the screen with projectiles. Like, that was when I actually developed my hatred of boss fights.
You will not survive this easily.
Like, this isn't what the rest of the game is. Why am I? No. I just want to fly around with my little pod.
Yeah. Oh dear, excuse me. I got a bit of a cough this evening. Still.
I got very frustrated with my first boss fight in Gotham Knights for the first hour, where I just kept dying again and again and again. And the boss is taunting you, right? And he's like, you think you can succeed? Like, no. I didn't say that. Eventually, I had to abort the mission entirely and come back with a different loadout, and suddenly it's peasy.
Yeah.
Kind of wish I'd thought of that beforehand, but it turns out, yes, specializing in cryogenic weapons and so forth on your character is really cool, but not great against freeze.
So I'm trying to think of a game I played recently. It's quite an old game. I can't remember when it was released. It's called Nexus: The Jupiter Incident. It's a sort of space...
Great title.
Yes.
I really
it's got a really...
It's not a space game at all.
I
really hope it's a house flipping game. With a title like that, that would be amazing.
So it's an interesting game, and it's got quite a corny intro. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna let it slide. But it's an interesting game because you have no direct control over anything. You're the director of what's going on, and if you make some bad tactical decisions, you will just die. But ultimately, it's like most games. Focus all your fire on one ship. When that ship is dead, focus on this one, then that one. And I mean, that's been a trope for most not RPGs, most RTSs for years and years and years. You just focus on one and carry on.
I've just had an idea for a game, and I need you to talk me out of this.
Let's do it.
Okay, it's a house flipping game, but it's not like the ones you see on Steam, where it's like this 3D Unreal game made with a lot of assets from the asset store. Pretty fun, but go into this wrecked place, clear out the junk, put the new walls in, paint them, sell it. No. You have a lever,
and you have to flip.
And you have a house, and you have to flip it as far as you can.
A physics game, then. You could set it up so it's just a bit of RNG. Dong!
If you were making this, and let's say we actually wanted to make it as a couch co-op party game, right? We're going to try and flip the house the best way, land it in certain things, the furthest distance, the most spins, whatever. What control system would you use?
I would use some sort of accelerometer, like a Wii controller, and you have to be really physical with it.
I might go with timing and rhythm.
you could have that thing where a bar goes up and down and up and down, and you have to just nail it. Essentially, it then becomes a golf game.
But then I would also want to bring in some sort of lateral movement. So I would want the mouse to move, and then you click at the right point.
And then you'd flip the house. It's interesting, though, the moment we started talking about that, it's like,
use bananas.
a different game.
Yep.
You could design a system that works with multiple games.
You know what? A game called House Flipper that's actually effectively a golf game using a house sounds amazing. You could unlock different types of houses.
What? And clubs.
This one's a Swiss chalet. This one's a 19th century French mansion.
Or you have to hit the house with enough force to send it into the distance, but not enough to completely disintegrate it. And this is how our crazy ideas come together.
And if you're playing one of the American levels, you have to make sure, and by American, I'm counting all of the North American continent, so Canada as well as the US, but not Central and South America in this case. The zoning laws mean that you can't land your house in a commercial district.
Okay, yep. This has gotten too silly now. We're talking about zoning and permits.
You are the worst person for talking me out of games. You know that, right?
Oh, that sounds fun. How can I help?
Oh, let's make that.
Oh, dear. So we've talked a bit about our control nightmares. If you've got any yourself, the games you played and you just want to throw the controller at the wall because it doesn't make any sense,
or it's just too sluggish and you keep dying. While we were setting this up, I absolutely was not playing Gotham Knights, and Robin, who's probably my least favorite, but I was trying to get his powers up too, just for reasons. Robin, who specializes in stealth, drops silently behind an enemy, walked up to them, and I pressed the stealth attack button. Except the game decided I wasn't quite close enough, so instead it used the other thing for that button, which is use a slingshot and attract everybody, and the hostages get killed.
Oops.
I'm like, Robin, you muppet. This is why you're the boy hostage.
Does the game have an animation state when you're ready to do a stealth kill? Because I know in some games that I've played where stealth
has a text.
Okay, because I know sometimes that they'll go from like a normal crouch position to an almost ready to attack position to let you know that you can make that move instead. But no, they say you can stealth kill now. Press X or press Y or press something.
Well, that's the thing, is one of those is stealth attack, and the other one is ambush attack, which is very loud.
Don't mess it up. Don't take a rocket launcher to a stealth party.
Unless you're Michael.
We're talking about that beforehand as well. I mean...
Yeah, we're considering playing some more Payday 2, and I was like, I might have to learn how to play that game non-stealthy. And Mike's like, I'm not just about trolling. It's like, I don't think you're going to troll me. I think you're going to be impatient and get bored and went, can we just shoot them?
Oops. Bang. No, I think that type of game, stealth was more of an add-on, wasn't it? As well. So thinking about control systems, if you decide to add something into your game, and this is ultimately, circling back to GTA 5, why they have so many different control systems is it's almost like two different games have been pushed together, and
it's especially fun in GTA 5
systems.
where you've got a car that controls like a car until you press the hover mode, where it behaves like a hovercraft? No, a helicopter? And then there's the other one that's a car until it's a hovercraft, until it's a submarine.
But of course, if you're driving it and then you turn it into one mode, suddenly all your controls have changed. The
controls suddenly shift, and you have to know what they're going to be.
Down becomes up, up becomes down.
Yeah. What was accelerate is now missile.
Oops. Why are all these stars on me?
They can't hear you when you're wrong. Okay. The rocket launcher incident. I was trying to teach Mikey how to do stealth runs in Payday 2. I have a lot of love for Payday 2. It's janky.
It's fun though.
But I have a lot of love for it. And I love doing stealth runs on Payday 2 because they're really nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't play like Thief. It doesn't reward you for going careful, careful, careful. No. You wait for your moment and then you go fast. Right? That you have to build your character around being silent and fast and seeing where the enemies are and all that business. And it's really so we're going in for the jewelry shop, which is one of the early missions, and it's one where if you do a stealth run on nightmare difficulty, you get an obscene amount of experience and money for an early player. So we do a couple of those, teach you. Great, we've done one of them. We do go into a second one. Mikey's bought some stuff for his character. He's all happy. He's like, great. Go in. I turn around. I was like, Mikey, is that a rocket launcher? Boom.
The jewelry shop.
This is where Mikey discovers that on most missions of Payday 2, you can go stealth or loud. But if you've built your character for stealth and you're not at max level and you're using a nightmare level mission to get a bunch of money, then you can't kill everything that turns up. You just don't have a shot.
We did start the mission again, and I was a bit quieter that time.
You are such a troll.
I honestly thought in the menu, because you could see each other's loadouts, I would have thought you'd have seen the fact that I had a rocket launcher right there.
Didn't occur to me you would sabotage me like that. Mikey's good at moments like that. Remember Pulsar, Mikey?
Yes, what a game!
We're trying to take an enemy ship. We're like, I don't think we can take this. And then it starts exploding, and Mikey's like, it's exploding, get off the ship, quick! Turns out much later, Mikey was on our ship shooting it.
Oh
no, it's exploding!
That's not what happened. I was looking at the portal. So I teleported over to the ship, ran to the reactor room, overloaded the reactor, and came back.
Good. That's even better.
But the worst thing is, I think we lost 2 crew members. But when we were back on our ship, we were like, let's get out of here. It went bang, and our ship's just crippled. Where's our engineer? He's been spaced.
For those of you who don't know, Pulsar that's a really interesting game for controls, actually, because it's a WSAD first-person style game. It's a bridge simulator, right?
Yeah.
For a spaceship. So you've got a captain, you've got an engineer, you've got etc. And you mess up. But when you go to use the in-game controls, it tracks your mouse movement while you're looking at the monitor. So it's if you're using Godot, this is 2D and 3D, right? It's basically the demo they give you, which means you've got these controls. You just walk up to them and start pressing the things. That was the one where my friend Durgan was playing with us, and he suddenly realized why exploding monitors were so dangerous in Star Trek, because the monitor exploded and killed him.
I had so much fun with that game.
Pulsar was a lot of fun. I remember Artemis, which is kind of an event game, which I guess would be the inspiration for Pulsar. Like people used to like set up multiple PCs in one room and decorate it to look like a starship, and
that's pretty
the
cool.
whole thing.
Yeah, it's pretty
especially as in that game, the captain doesn't have access to that information, so you need to work together. I was playing that with some friends of mine years ago over the internet. We weren't all in one place, and we were massively outnumbered, and the space station we're defending was about to go down, and our ship is crippled, and I'm the captain because of course I am, because of my ego. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to use the nukes. I'm like, you sure? Like, we don't have time to argue. Load the nukes. Prepare to fire at my command. Fire. And we watch the nuke launch. I haven't specified a target. Finds the nearest ship. Oh, that's my ship. Turns around and blows us up. And we just start laughing.
Oops. Oh, that's yeah. That was a lot of fun.
Hour,
we can't be far from it. We've got a few minutes left.
Okay. If there are any concerns, questions, comments, interpretive dances, games where you use bananas as controllers, jingles, your most sublime control system in a game, your most horrific control system in a game that isn't that decathlon thing.
I mean, and in
Um,
one control system that I absolutely loved, and it was a bit of a mix. So it's the control system, and it's also the underlying animations. Speedrunners. That
yes,
game just plays so fluidly.
that's the
It's a pleasure
opposite
to
of
play.
Gotham Knights in the sense that it just feels crisp.
Yeah.
Everything that your character does, assuming it wasn't hit by a weapon from someone else, feels entirely fair.
Yeah. I don't think I ever at any point I never felt that it was either my ability or someone else. Actually, you go into a trip or a rocket comes your way.
I think I've just remembered my worst control experience. Goddess by 22 Cans. Do you remember Goddess? This is Peter Molyneux's new company, 22
Is
Cans,
that
and he was going to reinvent the God game, which is a genre he effectively invented anyway with Populous and
Hmm.
a couple of other games, Black and White. He
I
decided
think I remember it.
that what people really wanted
There wasn't much
was
to it.
the experience of mobile games.
So like one
Specifically,
button or
people like
something.
the tactile thing. So what you had to do was flatten land like in Populous, which you did by clicking on land to make it flat.
Yeah.
No dragging, no thing. You click on a piece of land, it goes up or down depending on left or right bounce button. And then the houses generate mana, but you have to pick up the mana, which you do by clicking on them. And if you click them fast enough, they'll each play a different note from a tune. Bubble wrap. The entire thing was bubble wrap. It was the most annoying Skinner box I've ever played. Poor Peter Molyneux did not live that one down. Like, I know he's since started making cryptocurrency games, which I have thoughts about. But yeah, that was just awful.
I can't believe it's not released yet.
It got cancelled.
You can still buy it on Steam.
You can still buy it?
Yeah, it's 11 quid. It's an early access game. Its reviews are mostly negative.
I've got a review on there.
That's interesting though that it's still there and
can
available.
You see my review on there since I'm on your friends list.
Probably. I don't know how to do that, but probably.
You scroll down to reviews and it'll prioritize people on your friends list.
Yours does seem to be there. Perhaps there's too many negative ones.
Mine wasn't positive. Let me see if I can find mine. I don't normally badmouth games to that extent, but oh my, he just completely misunderstood what people want in a God game. I don't want to gradually click on things hundreds of times to feel godlike. To feel godlike, I want to do one action and then huge things happen.
I loved Black and White. I thought that was an amazing game.
Okay.
You can't buy it anymore.
Apparently.
Some sort of licensing agreement issue.
Let's get the groundwork out of the way. I quite like Molyneux games. I played the crap out of Populous and Populous 2 as a kid, and Syndicate Wars, Magic Carpet, and pretty much every other game he ever had in the late 80s and early 90s. And I love most of them. Not all of them, but most of them. So I'm not, it's Molyneux, get him. And I know this game is very, very much in the early stages. It's understood that it's not going to, there's not going to be a great deal of content, and that a lot of the cool stuff they want to put in won't be there for a while. Fine. But with all that, I cannot in good conscience recommend Goddess. Not just because its current early access form isn't ready, but at all. Not because it's Molyneux, not because it's not ready, but because I have a real problem with the design choice they made by clicking a few thousand times to move landscape into a more efficient configuration. It's mind-numbing, it's repetitive, it's physically uncomfortable after a length of time, and that process, the slowly dragging tiny bits of land so that settlers can be coaxed into building more or bigger settlements, that's the main design mechanic of the game. And my review goes on like that.
It's not really a mechanic, though. Click.
I had a brief. You watch him interviewed, and it's absolutely a mechanic. Like that was the feel he was going for. I had some brief enjoyment collecting mana as fast as I could and trying to play the tune the belief bubbles make. But it was very brief. After about 10 minutes, I realized I was experiencing all the joy of a Skinner box.
So for those
Yeah,
who might not
that
have
was
come
tough.
across the term before, Skinner box.
Skinner box was a psychological experiment that was done originally with rats, where you put a small response on a small reward on a thing, and people will press that thing even after the reward has gone away.
Hmm.
Originally, I believe the experiment was a box that would dispense treats if a rat pressed a button.
Yeah.
And after a while, you take the treats away, and the rat's just pressing the button and getting tiny amounts of dopamine from the button.
Is there a go?
Is there a GoFundMe to get Mikey's electric back on? No, because the electric cost of logging onto GoFundMe is too high in the UK. Don't get us started about the electric costs in this country, which are going to get much worse.
I've actually also not turned. I've got an image setting that I've not turned on OBS because my background's actually quite messy. So I think it being dark is for the best.
My background is extremely messy, but you can only see this green cloth against my wall, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Well, it's not cloth. Yeah, it's fabric. It'll do.
Yeah.
I'm just back from 3 weeks in the UK, and everywhere I turned, people were talking about it. Yeah, I mean, okay, this is not a political podcast.
Oh dear, we've lost.
I'm
Jan.
ready to move countries again.
So
No, everyone was talking about Mikey being in the dark bit. Everyone, like it's all over the newspapers.
It's very interesting though, because we have literally gone from electricity prices being 10 pence, which is still double somewhere like Alberta in Canada already, and now it's capped at no more than 35p.
I love how Alberta, Canada was your go-to. Have you been looking to moving to Canada, Mikey?
Absolutely not.
I haven't either.
It's just one I've actually got a proper reference for. But yeah, it has gotten significantly more expensive. If you were used to, let's say, paying £1,000 a year for your bills, it's now 3.5 times that easily.
Guaranteed for 6 months.
And then
who knows?
And then I might have to turn off one of these lights, and then we just end up with that.
Don't you just normally get Alexa to do it?
I would, but I don't want to trigger anybody else's. There you go.
I don't want to say what Mikey was trying to light before the stream.
But yeah, I quite like I've had a bright light on all day. You know what? This is quite chill, so I'm happy with that.
I like how you're taking my teal and amber thing seriously.
Yeah.
Now you should sing Bohemian Rhapsody.
Not with this cough. It would be like 2 lines in and then a coughing fit. Otherwise,
is this the real life?
No, this is fantasy.
Hey, you did the toucan version.
Yeah, too right.
Toucan. All right. On that note, I think we should let Mikey breathe.
Yes. Yeah, I'm getting to the point now where I think I need to stop before I choke. Because.
So with that done, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Are we doing a toucan chat next week?
Find out on the Canopy Discord.
Neither of us know.
Yes, it is. It's Canopy. No, it's the Toucan Talk.
Canopy chat.
Yes, it's my Halloween thing. So
exactly.
Just before we go, I usually turn certain lights in the house red so people know that I'm streaming or recording or whatever. And tonight I was like, I text everybody saying, I'm not going to put the lights on tonight. It's Halloween. It would be more disturbing for everybody walking past to go, oh, red lights. And just come into the ding dong. No, not having it.
Trick or treat. I'm not worried about trick-or-treaters because my house doesn't have a front door. I have to go through the garden. So there's nowhere for them to trick-or-treat. Ha!
Knock on the window.
Although Halloween is my favorite holiday. So I'm looking forward to be able to do that again at some point. Speaking of, thank you for joining us, everybody. We will see you next week for Toucan Chat. And happy Halloween. And if you don't celebrate Halloween, happy Halloween anyway. And you pass it on to someone who does. You can bank it.
And we'll see you.
I was going to say you should all go buy Gotham Knights, but it is expensive. So maybe only buy it if you really want it and you have the money.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Press it. Press it.
And